I'm back, and I know many of you wonder where I've been and what I've been up to and why I've put off making these videos for a while. And I probably do owe you an explanation, and so in short, this is it. As I go about this experience I call my life, I'm sensitive to its flow, its continuity, and I usually effortlessly drift about in that, living in what I've come to call a green light existence, where all systems are go, and I am theoretically aware of all that I can manage to be aware of at that particular junction of my awareness. But sometimes something changes and I suddenly get what I call a red light. I usually don't know the why behind it showing up, but I'm acutely aware of it being there. And it's a time, I have learned, when I am to be quiet, to stop, to be reflective and attentive, because there is something here that I need to see. And so, that's where I've been. I have been in the midst of this red light, waiting to see. Quite often, what I'm to see during this time is a collection of things, or a broadened viewpoint that I can then sometimes share with others. Or other times, it might be a tiny detail, one teeny spot, but a pivotal spot that must be defined clearly, so what I'm trying to express can be more clearly seen. And that was the case here. Before we can discuss any of these things that we want to discuss and that so capture our attention and imagination, there is something very, very important that we must do. We must now consciously always do this new thing. In fact, from here on out, I hope this would be the first thing you note before any ideas begin to form, or otherwise, unfortunately, everything else that comes out of my mouth will seem confusing and conflicted, and I will seem to contradict myself and be pointing in circles into paradoxes. So, here is what we must do. Are you listening? Have I lost you? Well, tune me back in, because here it is. We must become consciously aware of whatever perspective we choose to observe something from. We must become consciously aware of whatever perspective we choose to observe something from. We must stop ourselves and note this, because whatever it is that you are observing will appear differently from different perspectives, even when it's actually the exact same thing. Now, at first, this may sound simple, insignificant even, but poo-poo this and you are certain to find yourself all twisted up in conflicting thoughts and not be able to see your way out of them easily, because from here on out, there's only the one truth in all its manifestations, in all its different perspectives. But it's always the same thing. You have to move your mind, your awareness, like tuning from one radio station to another. If you are only set on the country station, you will only hear country music, and you'll think heavy metal and classical music are just someone's delusion. And your awareness is your tuner. Before today, you may not have realized that genuinely sliding from one perspective to another one was possible, much less something that we should be doing. Maybe we didn't realize that our dial turned, much less that we would hear something different when it did. But it does, and you will. Do you see? And this is why noting what perspective you are observing from, what channel you are tuned to, is paramount to a clear understanding. Paramount. But it is largely overlooked in our ordinary thought processes. We've just become accustomed to tuning into our perspective of choice, whatever we're used to, and then we naively go on to assume that this is the perspective, the channel. But it's not. There are countless perspectives, all summing up one single thing, one truth, but even so, manifesting a million different answers. Our singular focus is a byproduct of our individuality that we have done our whole lives, well, up until today. Today, we begin to regain our innate flexibility that will enable us to begin to see these things that we long to see more clearly, because it's these different perspectives that determine how we view whatever we are observing. And if you are unaware that whatever perspective you are currently holding will, and I mean will, determine your opinion of what you're observing, then you'll be lost and you won't see what you've come here to see, because it's a matter of seeing the bigger picture. And that depends upon not being wed to only the perspective that supports the theory of our individuality. Because there's more, and we must see this if we wish to go on to discuss all these wonderful things that are dawning in our awareness and tugging at our thoughts, begging to be answered. And I want to answer their call, don't you? Because otherwise we will go on seeming to choose sides when no choosing is necessary. It might only be a matter of perspective that causes something to seem different or have different outcomes or purposes. But we won't see this if we do not realize how dependent what seems to be is upon the perspective through which it is viewed. Do you see this? Perspective and how we relate to whatever we perceive is wed to one another like two sides of a coin. When we broaden our perspective, we broaden how we can potentially interact with whatever it is that we are perceiving. This is what I would like you to consider and begin to integrate into your world. And I know this may seem a little foggy and that I'm making a big deal over a small point. So let's use a common everyday newspaper to illustrate the dramatic differences I'm trying to point to.